And it's just a bit of myself, but when I was a kid, I used to look at my textbooks and I used to see your face on it. And I used to dream, although it's a foolish dream, to be Prime Minister one day. Right? Foolish child. I asked my dad. My dad told me, you would never be a Prime Minister in this country. And I spoke to my teachers. They told me, you can dream. And I was devastated, you know. And I'm a Chinese person. I don't speak Chinese. I don't speak Cantonese and I don't speak Mandarin. I'm a failure of a Chinese. A lot of Chinese people tell me that. I think the saddest part is when I identified as being a Chinese, not being able to be a prime minister. And my own Chinese families and friends tell me that you don't speak Chinese. You aren't Chinese. It makes me wonder that, am I born in this country and I'm never welcomed here? Am I just a guest, or am I just a pendatang, like everybody calls me on Facebook, on Instagram and everything? It's not that it happens regularly. I feel that when people do say that, it hurts. So do you think maybe perhaps this country, what it needs is just a little bit of understanding then?
I think there is understanding. You know, there are things that we do for the Chinese which we cannot speak out too much because the Malays will feel that we are concentrating on the Chinese. I met 3 students in London, in Hyde Park, and I talked to them, and they were studying in British universities. I asked them, who financed you? Their parents. Their parents. It is obvious that rich Chinese parents can afford to send their children abroad. But there are poor Chinese parents who cannot.
Yes.
So what did we do? We started twinning arrangement between Malaysian institution and foreign institution so that you can get an English education in here in Malaysia. 2 years here, 1 year in Europe. So it doesn't cost very much. So we find that when we had this twinning arrangement, most of the students were not Malays. Most of the students were Chinese.
I see.
And a few Indians. See, those who can afford, because education in Malaysia is very cheap by comparison. You want to send to England, there's transport, there's
rent,
housing, all kinds of things. You see,
that's right.
So because of that, we balance the number of Malays going abroad with the number of Chinese going to twinning
programs.
And these twin universities now have become full-fledged universities. You go there, you can get the same kind of education that you find in England or in Australia. That was done. And if you take figures as to the numbers, the numbers are not actually balanced. Still, the number of Malays with higher education is less than the number of Chinese, because those who can afford send their children abroad. I went to Cambridge. I went to Cambridge University recently. The students who greeted me were all Chinese. Only 3 Malays. All the rest were Chinese. And they were all private students. No scholarship. They can afford it. But those who cannot afford, they can go to a local university that is twinned with a foreign university. Now the local university is accredited, fully accredited, and you don't have to go to UK. And if you care to look at the population of the universities, the International Medical University, when it was started, not a single Malay student, not a single. Until they appointed Dr. Bakar as a chancellor, he realized that the population of the student is not balanced. So he asked Mara to give scholarship. So Mara gave 10 scholarship, but 10 is very small number. So in the local universities, private universities, the most number of students are not Malays. most Malays go to government university if they get a scholarship. Without scholarship, no way. None of them can afford. So this is a balancing act which we cannot always talk about. We talk about this, the Malays get angry. You talk about the Malays, the Chinese get angry. So it's a difficult task. Yeah. You know, when you are in a position like I was as Prime Minister, I had to balance all these things. But I don't have to tell people all the time. I cannot tell people all the time.
It must have been really tough. It must have been really tough.
It is what it is.
But you must appreciate that despite the differences between us, Malays, Chinese, Indian, different religion, different language, different culture, Malaysia is still stable by comparison to most of the other multiracial countries.
Very true.
It is. And I am very proud to be a Malaysian, for sure.
I mean,